Welcome to Fear Files. Tonight, we journey into the heart of terror with 3 spine-chilling tales that will haunt your dreams. First, a group of friends discovers a forbidden grove bathed in the eerie glow of a blood moon. What they find there is more horrifying than their worst nightmares. Next, a solo backpacker uncovers an abandoned cabin deep in the wilderness, filled with cryptic symbols and dark secrets. As night falls, the whispers in the forest grow louder, drawing them into a sinister ritual. Finally, a family on a camping trip stumbles upon ancient stone altars in a secluded grove. Trapped by a cult's dark intentions, they must navigate the treacherous woods and uncover the chilling history before becoming part of its legacy. Prepare yourself for an unforgettable descent into the macabre. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss a moment of this nightmare. Like, share, and join us for more horrifying tales every week. Welcome to Fear Files. Dare to watch if you can.
Jessica Parker tightened the straps of her backpack and adjusted the brim of her hat against the late afternoon sun. She and her friends, Ethan, Leah, and Marcus, were preparing for what was supposed to be a relaxing weekend hike through Northcliffe Forest. Known for its dense woods and ancient trees, the forest had always intrigued Jessica. As an environmental scientist, she was fascinated by its untouched ecosystem. Ethan, the group's avid photographer, was adjusting his camera, while Leah, the group's organizer, reviewed their maps. Marcus, the most adventurous of the bunch, was eagerly discussing the different trails they might explore. "Are you sure we have everything?" Leah asked, glancing at Jessica. "The forest can be tricky." "Yeah, we're good," Jessica replied, giving her a reassuring smile. "Let's get moving before it gets too dark. We have a lot of ground to cover." As they ventured into the forest, the sunlight began to wane, casting long shadows between the trees. The air grew cooler, and a thick mist started to settle, giving the forest an otherworldly feel. Despite the growing chill, the group's spirits remained high, their laughter and chatter echoing through the trees. By nightfall, the group set up camp in a clearing they'd found earlier. They made a fire, cooked dinner, and shared stories under the twinkling stars. The serenity of the forest was soothing, and they felt a sense of adventure as they prepared for the hike the next day. However, as they settled into their tents, an unsettling feeling began to creep over Jessica. She brushed it off as nerves, but couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. In the middle of the night, Jessica was jolted awake by a distant, rhythmic chanting. She unzipped her tent and peeked outside. The blood moon hung low in the sky, its red glow casting eerie shadows across the forest floor. The chanting grew louder, more insistent. Jessica woke Ethan, Leah, and Marcus, and they followed the sound cautiously. The forest was eerily silent except for the haunting chant, which seemed to be coming from deeper within the woods. "What do you think it is?" Ethan whispered, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and curiosity. "I don't know," Jessica replied, "but we should check it out. It could be someone in trouble." They moved cautiously through the dense forest, guided by the chanting. The trees seemed to close in around them, their twisted branches reaching out like skeletal hands. The mist had thickened, making it difficult to see more than a few feet ahead. After what felt like hours of navigating through the dark forest, the group stumbled upon a secluded grove. The sight that greeted them made their blood run cold. In the center of the grove was a large bonfire, its flames flickering with an unnatural blue hue. Around it stood cloaked figures, their faces obscured by their hoods. They chanted in a language that seemed to twist the very air around them, their voices blending into a cacophony of eerie, dissonant sounds. The group hid behind a cluster of trees, watching in horror. The cloaked figures formed a circle around a grotesque symbol etched into the ground, and the flames of the bonfire danced in a hypnotic pattern. As they chanted, the ground beneath the symbol began to tremble. Jessica's heart pounded in her chest. "We need to get out of here," she whispered urgently. "This isn't safe." But before they could move, a twig snapped underfoot. One of the cloaked figures turned towards them, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. The figure raised its hand and the chanting stopped abruptly. The grove fell into an eerie silence. Panic surged through the group. They turned and fled, their footsteps pounding against the forest floor. The cultists' voices rose in a frenzied chant, and the air grew heavy with a palpable malevolence. As they ran, the forest seemed to close in on them. The trees twisted and shifted, their branches reaching out like grasping hands. The mist thickened, making it nearly impossible to see. The ground beneath them felt unstable and strange. Whispering voices seemed to follow them through the darkness. "We need to find a way out," Leah shouted, her voice cracking with fear. "Head for the river," Marcus yelled back. "It should be close." They ran blindly through the forest, guided only by the distant sound of rushing water. The forest seemed alive with shadows, and the air was filled with the sounds of rustling leaves and distant, mocking laughter. Just as they reached the riverbank, a figure emerged from the mist. It was Alden Blackwood, the cult leader. His eyes gleamed with a dark, almost hypnotic intensity. He raised a hand, and the forest fell silent once more. "Your intrusion has consequences," Alden said, his voice echoing with a sinister undertone. "You have trespassed upon sacred ground. Now, you shall witness the true power of the ancient rites." The group was forced to follow Alden and his cultists back to the grove. The ritual was nearing its climax, and the air was thick with an otherworldly energy. The bonfire roared with an intense, unnatural heat, and the symbol on the ground pulsed with a malevolent glow. Jessica watched in horror as the cultists began to perform a series of intricate movements, their chants growing louder and more frenzied. Alden stood at the center, holding a dark, ceremonial dagger aloft. His eyes were fixed on the blood moon, which seemed to cast an even more ominous light over the grove. "This is madness," Jessica muttered. "We have to stop them." "We need to find a way to disrupt the ritual," Ethan said. "But how?" Jessica's mind raced as she looked around the grove. The forest was eerily silent, the only sound the crackling of the bonfire and the chanting of the cultists. She noticed a series of ancient runes carved into the trees surrounding the grove. They seemed to pulse in time with the ritual's energy. "Those runes might be part of the ritual," Jessica said. "If we can disrupt them, it might break the connection." With a plan in mind, the group moved cautiously towards the trees. They used rocks and sticks to scratch at the runes, attempting to erase or alter them. The cultists, however, soon noticed their actions and surged towards them. As the ritual reached its peak, a dark, shadowy figure began to emerge from the symbol on the ground. Its form was indistinct, a swirling mass of darkness and malevolent energy. The very air seemed to warp around it, and a deep, guttural roar filled the grove. The friends fought against the cultists as they continued their desperate attempt to disrupt the runes. The forest seemed to come alive with malevolent intent, and the entity's presence grew stronger. It lashed out at the group with tendrils of shadow, trying to drag them into its dark embrace. Jessica felt a cold, creeping terror as she realized the full extent of the danger they were in. The entity's influence was affecting her mind, filling her with visions of horror and despair. She fought to keep her focus, determined to see their plan through. "Keep going," Jessica shouted. "We're almost there." With one final desperate effort, the group managed to alter the last of the runes. The energy in the grove shifted violently, and the bonfire flared with a blinding light. The entity let out a furious scream as it was pulled back into the symbol, and the ritual was abruptly halted. The cultists, now frantic and disoriented, tried to regroup, but their efforts were in vain. The power of the ritual had been broken, and the grove was filled with a chaotic maelstrom of energy. The friends seized the opportunity and ran, guided by the faint light of the blood moon. The forest seemed to resist their escape, with trees and shadows clawing at them. The mist had dissipated, and the path to the river was now clear. As they reached the riverbank, they plunged into the cold water, swimming for the opposite shore. Exhausted and terrified, they finally made it to safety. They collapsed on the riverbank, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. The forest was silent behind them, the eerie glow of the blood moon fading as dawn approached. Back at their campsite, the group packed up quickly, their faces pale and their eyes haunted by the horrors they had witnessed. The forest, once a place of adventure and wonder, now seemed like a dark, oppressive presence. As they drove away from North Clive Forest, Jessica glanced back at the trees, now just shadows in the distance. The memories of the blood moon and the cult's ritual would haunt her dreams for years to come. The forest had shown its true face, and the friends knew they had narrowly escaped a fate worse than death. The secrets of Northcliff Forest remained hidden, and its dark power had been momentarily subdued, but Jessica knew that the malevolent entity was still lurking, waiting for the next chance to emerge from the shadows. In the months that followed, Jessica continued her work, but the haunting memories of the forest never fully faded. She avoided discussing the events with anyone, fearing disbelief and ridicule. Northcliff Forest remained as enigmatic and dangerous as ever. Locals spoke of strange occurrences and whispering voices in the woods. Some claimed to see shadows moving in the periphery of their vision, while others spoke of fleeting glimpses of cloaked figures. The forest seemed to have a life of its own, its secrets buried deep within the ancient trees. And as the blood moon rose again, its sinister glow cast long shadows over Northcliff Forest, waiting for the next unwitting souls to stumble upon its dark and twisted mysteries. Alex Carter stood at the edge of the wilderness, the dense forest stretching endlessly before him. The cool autumn breeze rustled the pine needles, carrying the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. This was exactly the kind of place where he found inspiration for his writing, isolated, mysterious, and full of untold stories. He adjusted his backpack and checked his map one last time. His plan was to spend a few days hiking and exploring, hoping to find material for his next article. The locals had mentioned an abandoned cabin deep in the woods, a relic from a bygone era. Intrigued, Alex decided to make it his destination. As he ventured into the forest, the towering pines loomed overhead, their branches creating a canopy that filtered the sunlight into dappled patterns on the forest floor. The path was barely visible, overgrown with vegetation and littered with fallen branches. Despite the challenging terrain, Alex felt a thrill of excitement. This was his element. The day passed uneventfully, with Alex pausing occasionally to take notes and photographs. As the sun began to set, he decided to make camp near a small clearing. He pitched his tent, started a fire, and settled in for the night, the sounds of the forest creating a soothing symphony around him. The next morning, Alex awoke early, eager to continue his journey. He followed the vague directions he had pieced together from old maps and local stories, navigating deeper into the forest. By midday, he stumbled upon the cabin. It stood in a small clearing, its wooden structure weathered and partially overgrown with ivy. The windows were shattered and the door hung loosely on its hinges. Despite its dilapidated state, the cabin had an almost magnetic pull. Alex approached cautiously, his curiosity piqued. Inside, the cabin was dark and musty, dust motes danced in the shafts of light that filtered through the broken windows. As Alex explored, he noticed strange symbols carved into the walls and unsettling artifacts scattered about. There were old books with yellowed pages, jars filled with unknown substances, and crude effigies that sent shivers down his spine. "What is this place?" Alex muttered to himself, his voice echoing in the silence. He spent hours examining the symbols and artifacts, his unease growing with each discovery. The symbols seemed to be part of some ancient, arcane language, and the artifacts hinted at dark rituals. Alex couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, but he dismissed it as paranoia. As night fell, Alex decided to stay in the cabin, reasoning that it offered more protection than camping outside. He set up his sleeping bag in a corner and tried to get some rest, but sleep eluded him, his mind racing with questions about the cabin and its previous occupants. Sometime after midnight, Alex was jolted awake by a faint whispering. At first, he thought it was the wind, but the whispers grew more distinct, carrying an unsettling, almost intelligible quality. He sat up, straining to listen. The whispers seemed to emanate from the forest beyond the cabin. Grabbing his flashlight, Alex cautiously stepped outside. The night was eerily silent, the moon casting a pale light over the clearing. The whispers continued, guiding him towards the dense trees. Driven by a mix of curiosity and apprehension, Alex followed the sound. The forest seemed to close in around him, the trees becoming dark, looming figures. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, as if calling to him. After what felt like an eternity, Alex stumbled into a hidden clearing. His breath caught in his throat at the sight before him. A group of cloaked figures stood in a circle, their faces obscured by hoods. They chanted in a strange, guttural language, their voices blending into a haunting melody. At the center of the circle was an altar, and on it lay various artifacts that seemed to pulsate with an eerie, otherworldly light. Alex watched in horrified fascination as the figures performed their ritual, oblivious to his presence. "What are they doing?" he whispered to himself, feeling a chill run down his spine. Suddenly, one of the figures turned, as if sensing his presence. Alex's heart raced as he realized he needed to leave before he was discovered. He turned and fled, the whispers and chants echoing in his ears. Back at the cabin, Alex's mind raced with fear and curiosity. He had stumbled upon something far more sinister than he had ever imagined. The cult's ritual was unlike anything he had ever encountered, and the implications were terrifying. The next day, Alex decided to investigate further. He spent hours studying the symbols and artifacts in the cabin, trying to piece together the cult's purpose. The symbols seemed to correspond to ancient rituals designed to commune with spirits from another realm. As evening approached, Alex formulated a plan. He would observe the cult from a safe distance and gather more information. He hoped to uncover the truth behind their rituals and the haunting whispers that plagued the forest. That night, Alex returned to the hidden clearing. He hid behind a large tree, his eyes fixed on the cultists. The ritual began again, their chants filling the air with a palpable energy. Alex took careful notes, documenting every detail. Suddenly, a hand clamped down on his shoulder. He spun around to find himself face to face with Malcolm Graves, the cult leader. Malcolm's eyes gleamed with a dark, almost hypnotic intensity. "You've seen too much," Malcolm said, his voice low and menacing. "You should not have come here." Alex's heart pounded in his chest as he realized the gravity of his situation. He was caught between the cult and the dark forces they sought to commune with. Alex's instincts took over. He pushed Malcolm away and bolted through the forest, branches scratching at his face and arms. The cultists pursued him, their chants turning into shouts of anger and alarm. Desperation fueled Alex's flight. He knew the forest better now, and he used that knowledge to his advantage, taking winding paths and doubling back to throw off his pursuers. The whispers seemed to guide him, leading him away from danger. Hours later, exhausted and battered, Alex stumbled back to the cabin. He barricaded the door and collapsed against the wall, his mind racing. He knew he couldn't stay here. The cult would find him eventually. He needed to get out of the forest and report what he had discovered. But he also felt a strange compulsion to uncover the full truth. The whispers seemed to tug at his mind, urging him to delve deeper. Determined to end the cult's sinister practices, Alex spent the next day preparing. He gathered supplies, studied the symbols, and formulated a plan to disrupt the next ritual. As night fell, he made his way back to the clearing. This time, he stayed hidden, waiting for the right moment. As the cultists began their chants, Alex moved stealthily, placing symbols of protection he had found in the cabin around the clearing. He hoped these would disrupt the ritual and protect him from the dark forces. As the ritual reached its climax, Alex stepped forward, chanting the protective incantations he had learned. The cultists turned, shocked by his presence. The air crackled with energy, and the whispers grew louder, more frantic. Malcolm stepped forward, fury in his eyes. "You cannot stop us," he snarled. "The spirits demand their due." But Alex continued, his voice steady and strong. The protective symbols glowed, and the cultists faltered. The ritual began to unravel, the otherworldly light flickering and fading. With a final, desperate shout, Malcolm lunged at Alex, but the protective symbols flared, and he was thrown back, his body writhing in agony. The cultists fled, their chants turning to cries of fear. The forest fell silent as the last of the cultists disappeared into the night. Alex stood alone in the clearing, the whispers now a soft, almost comforting murmur. He had disrupted the ritual, but he knew the cult would not give up so easily. He returned to the cabin one last time, gathering his belongings. As he left the forest, he felt a sense of accomplishment mixed with lingering unease. He had uncovered a dark secret and faced unimaginable horrors, but the cost had been high. Alex knew he would never be the same. The whispers would haunt him, a constant reminder of the dangers that lurked in the shadows. But he also felt a renewed sense of purpose. He would tell his story, warning others of the dark forces that lay hidden in the wilderness. As he emerged from the forest, the first light of dawn breaking over the horizon, Alex felt a strange sense of peace. He had survived the night, but the true test lay ahead. He would confront the unknown and shine a light on the darkness, no matter the cost. Months later, Alex's account of his experience in the forest was published, sending shockwaves through the community. Some dismissed it as fiction, while others were captivated by the chilling tale. But for Alex, it was a cathartic release, a way to exorcise the demons that had haunted him since that fateful night. The abandoned cabin remained a focal point of local lore, a place shrouded in mystery and fear. But Alex's story served as a warning, a reminder of the dangers that lay hidden in the wilderness. And as long as people remembered, the whispers would remain just that, haunting echoes of a dark past. Alex continued his writing, delving into other mysteries and unexplored corners of the world. But the forest, with its towering pines and eerie whispers, would always hold a special place in his memory. It was a place where he had faced the unknown and emerged stronger, a place where the darkness had been confronted and, for a time, held at bay. The legacy of the cult and their dark rituals would linger, a testament to the power of the unknown and the resilience of the human spirit. And as the years passed, Alex's story would become a part of that legacy, a tale of courage, curiosity, and the eternal struggle against the darkness that lurks in the shadows. The Miller family was on their annual camping trip, seeking a break from the hustle and bustle of city life. David, his wife Sarah, and their 2 children, Emily and Jake reveled in the fresh air and tranquility of the forest. "Can we go exploring, Dad?" Jake's eyes sparkled with excitement as he looked up at his father. David smiled, ruffling his son's hair. "Of course, buddy. Just stay close and don't wander off." The family ventured deeper into the forest, marveling at the towering pines and the sunlight filtering through the canopy. The sense of adventure filled the air as they walked along the narrow, winding trails. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the forest floor, the Millers stumbled upon a secluded grove. The air grew colder, and an eerie silence enveloped them. "David, look at these stones," Sarah said, her voice tinged with unease. She pointed to ancient stone altars covered in disturbing symbols etched into the earth. David's curiosity was piqued, but a sense of dread gnawed at him. "Let's head back to the campsite. It's getting late." But as they turned to leave, the forest seemed to close in around them, the path they had come from now obscured by darkness. Nightfall brought with it an unsettling stillness. The Millers huddled around their campfire, trying to shake off the feeling of being watched. "Did you hear that?" Emily whispered, her eyes wide with fear. David listened intently, hearing faint whispers and the sound of footsteps approaching. Panic surged through him as he realized they were not alone. A group of cloaked figures emerged from the shadows, their faces hidden beneath hoods. They encircled the family, chanting in a language that twisted the air around them. The cult's leader, Lydia Blackwood, stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with malevolent intent. "You have trespassed on sacred ground. The forest spirit demands a sacrifice." David's heart pounded as he shielded his family. "We didn't mean to intrude. Please let us go." Lydia's smile was cold and unyielding. "You cannot leave. The ritual must be completed." The Millers were thrust into a deadly game of cat and mouse, forced to navigate the treacherous woods while evading the cult's bloodthirsty intentions. Desperation drove David to uncover the grove's chilling history. He found an old journal hidden among the stones, detailing the forest spirit's wrath and the cult's twisted rituals. "The spirit is vengeful," David read aloud. "It demands blood to appease its anger." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "We need to find a way out of here, David, for the kids." David's resolve hardened. "We'll find a way, Sarah. I promise." The family found themselves back in the grove, the cultists' chants growing louder. Lydia prepared the altar, her eyes fixed on David. "You cannot escape your fate," she hissed. "The spirit will have its due." But David had a plan. He had discovered a way to disrupt the ritual, using the symbols he had found in the journal. With a mix of courage and desperation, he enacted his plan, hoping to save his family from a gruesome end. Chaos erupted as the ritual was disrupted. The cultists' chants turned to screams as the symbols flared with a blinding light. David seized the opportunity, grabbing his family and making a run for it. They navigated the dark forest, the cultists hot on their trail. But the ancient protection symbols guided them, leading them away from danger. The Millers reached the edge of the forest, the cultists closing in. Lydia, furious and desperate, lunged at David. "You cannot escape," she screamed, her voice filled with rage. David stood his ground, the protection symbols glowing brightly. "We will be free," he declared. The symbols flared one last time, and Lydia was thrown back, the power of the forest spirit turning against her. As the first light of dawn broke through the trees, the Millers emerged from the forest, battered but alive. They had survived the night, but the memories of the grove would haunt them forever. David held his family close, vowing to protect them from the darkness that lurked in the shadows. They had faced unimaginable horrors, but their bond had grown stronger. The Miller story became a local legend, a cautionary tale about the dangers hidden in the forest. The grove remained a place of fear and mystery, its dark history never fully uncovered. David's account of their ordeal served as a warning, a testament to the power of the unknown and the resilience of the human spirit. And as the years passed, the story of the grove and its vengeful spirit would become part of the forest's eerie legacy. The Millers moved on with their lives, but the memory of the forest and its ancient secrets stayed with them, a reminder of the night they faced the darkness and emerged victorious.
Thank you for watching Fear Files. We hope these chilling tales have left you on the edge of your seat and sent shivers down your spine. From the haunted grove under the blood moon, the sinister whispers in the abandoned cabin, to the terrifying secrets of the ancient altars, tonight's stories remind us that darkness lurks in the most unexpected places. If you enjoyed this journey into the macabre, don't forget to hit that like button and share this video with fellow horror enthusiasts. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new tale of terror. Have a story idea or an experience you'd like to share? Drop it in the comments below. We love hearing from our brave viewers. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, fear is always watching. This is Fear Files, signing off. Sweet nightmares.